With a few simple tweaks in your Excel pivot tables, you can totally automate your daily, weekly, or monthly reporting. If you want to automate your reporting using Excel and pivot tables only, you should watch this video all the way till the end. We'll cover some really important automation topics, including how to set the data range of the pivot table dynamic. We'll also learn how to make some calculations within the pivot table to create new fields, new calculated fields. We'll learn about formatting, automation of formatting, and some advanced tips to help you with automation of your reporting. This could be your daily sales report, daily margin report, or any other daily report that you want to be automated. If you want to practice along, the file with the source data is provided in the description below. Download the file and practice along with me. I've personally been able to save countless hours by automating these reports because once you automate the report, you don't have to create it or update it again. It works for you and you can focus on other important tasks as part of your daily routine. So let's get right into it. So to create a pivot table, press Ctrl and A to select all data. Make sure there are no blanks in the columns or there are no blank rows. And then click on Insert, Pivot Table, click OK. So your pivot table is created. Let's bring in some information. For example, let's bring in the months in the rows section to start with. Bring in gross sales, discounts and deductions, and standard costs. We have gross sales, deductions, and standard costs, but what we want to calculate are net sales and gross profit. And we also need gross profit margin. So let's see how we do this in the pivot table. By the way, you could argue that you could create these calculations directly in the source data by adding columns here, but I don't recommend that because that way you won't be able to analyze the data the same way as you can when the calculation is already built in the pivot table itself. Then you can slice and dice data into multiple ways. So let's see how to add those calculations. So on the pivot table, select on any month and go to Pivot Table Analyze, Fields, Items and Sets, and Calculated Field. So we give it a name first. As I mentioned, we will be calculating net sales. So the name of this new field is net sales. And then we can create a formula. So it should be equal to, as we discussed, gross sales. So you double click on gross sales minus discounts and deductions. Then you click OK. And you see very quickly, Excel has calculated the field of net sales for us. The next one, again, click on any cell, pivot table analyze, calculate field. This one would be gross profit. So we name it gross profit. The formula would be net sales. See, our new field that we just created is already displaying here. Net sales minus standard cost. Click OK. And you have gross profit. Now the final field, we create gross profit percentage, which will be gross profit, our new field, divided by net sales. Okay, and you have the numbers. Now you need to once change the format, so all of the amounts should be in the currency format and the percentages should reflect in the percentage formats. So let's quickly change the format. So right click on the field, click on value field settings, and then you click on number format, change it to currency. See if you like this format. You can even use the one with brackets. So I will select this one, and if I click OK, and you see now the format has changed. For this field, you have to do it once, and then afterwards, if you make any changes to the pivot table, they will automatically be in the same mode. So I'll quickly change the format for these fields to currency and this one to percentage. It is a manual exercise, but because you're automating the pivot table, you may be using it for a very long time. I think it's worth doing the initial effort and going in and changing the formats. Okay, now that we have all the calculated fields that we need, we can actually remove some of them that we don't need. So let's say we only are concerned with net sales, gross profit, and gross profit percentage, right? So we can go back and remove gross sales, discounts, and standard costs. So really we are now left with the fields that we really intend to be showing here. And if you see the title, it says sum of net sales, sum of gross profit. You can actually change that. So I select the three fields and press Ctrl plus H key to find sum of and just replace with a blank. So don't put anything in replace with, and you click on replace all, and there you go. The new field names are set for you. So before we do any further updates, I do want to add December data to this pivot table, but I want to show you how to add it in a way that the pivot table gets updated automatically with new data. So currently, for example, if you look at our source data range, it shows that starts from cell A1 and goes all the way to H672. So if any data is added below row 672, or if any column is added outside the range, the pivot table will not be able to update that information. So how do we do that? Let's see. Now to make the pivot table source data range dynamic, click on any blank cell and click on the formulas menu on the ribbon, and you have to define a new range. So click on define name, and let's call this data 1. You can give it any name you like, but for our example we'll call it data 1. Okay, where it says refers to, this is where we will add a formula. We'll actually add the offset formula, and I'll show you how it works. So it will be equal to offset, and then you open the brackets, and then you can click on the formula help. It shows up here. So the first item is reference. This will be the first cell where the pivot table starts, where the range starts. So in our case, it will be cell A1. Okay, and just you can just add 0 and 0 for rows and columns because you want the range to start immediately from cell A1. So you don't want any gaps. So rows and columns will be 0. And then you need height and width. Is take the first column as the range for height and take the first row. So if I go back up and take the first row as the range for width. So A to A. So column A to A, basically column A is our height, and row 1 to 1 or row 1 is our width. But that's not all. You have to add another little formula here, which is count A. So you add count. So you add count A, and then just put the column in brackets. And similarly for the width, count A, put the row in brackets. So very simple formula. So this was to show you how the formula is working. However, we need to copy this information because we need to put this information in the range that we are defining, right? We have now copied our formula, and in the refers to section, we will put the formula that we just created, okay? And then you click OK, and it has now saved that range. So if you go to name manager, you will see that you have the range called data 1. Now I will add December data and see how the pivot table automatically includes it, right? I'm copying and pasting data for December below row 672. Here you go. Now we have December data in here. You may have a system that is pulling information and throwing it in your data and in your source data. But with a dynamic range, your pivot table will be able to update it automatically. So if I now go back to our original pivot table and I go to pivot table analyze and click on refresh, you'll see that nothing happens because we have not linked the new range that we have defined. So we can do that by changing the data source. And instead of the existing data range, we will just change the name to data 1. This is the name that we gave to our range. So if you click OK, you will see that now December is showing up in the range. So the range has now become dynamic, and any new information that is added will automatically get updated in the pivot table. Now you may be thinking that you need to refresh the pivot table so that the new range is selected. You can partly automate the refreshing of the pivot table by going to pivot table options. So again, go to pivot table analyze, options, and then go to the tab called data. And here you have an option to check refresh data when opening the file. So if you check this, every time the file is opened, it will immediately try to refresh the data. So if your system, whatever system you are using, has pushed in data in your source data, and you have made this selection, whenever the file is opened, it will automatically refresh. So the viewer or the users, when they look at the pivot table, it will show them the most up-to-date information. This is good if you have, for example, a daily sales report, which is generated every day. The pivot table will also be refreshed as soon as the file is opened by the user. As far as the design of the pivot table is concerned, you can use the standard design, which somewhat aligns with your corporate theme. So for example, if you want to select this light blue style, I can click on it and it will change it to this format. So now you have pretty much automated the pivot table. Let's see the benefit of this now. So far we are only looking at the months, but now we can slice and dice this information in any way we want. So for example, if we don't want months here, we want to go by customer. You have the information available by customer. If you want this information by customer and product, you can bring in product in the rows section and you see all of this information. So all your calculated fields will always stay. So you have automated that part. And this way you can look at information in much more detail and it always stays up to date. And if you're creating automated reports, you can create different screens, different pivot screens. So let's say this is one view, which is by customer and product, right? So you could give this sheet a name, for example, summary by customer and product. Okay. And now you want to create another view, just right click on the sheet, click on move or copy, create a copy, and then it creates a new sheet with all the settings that are already there. But this one, for example, you want to just analyze by channel or segment. So rename it summary by channel, summary by channel. And now you remove your product name, you remove your customer name, and then just bring in channel or segment. Okay. So this way you can create multiple views of the pivot table, which is very quick to scroll through. So if you want to just look at the high level channel information, you have it here. And if you want to go down to the customer and product, you can have it here. Now going back to our customer and product summary, the first thing you can do is you can change the layout. So you can click on design, report layout, and show it in tabular form. So then each field will have its own column, right? And for example, let's say you want to sort the product information by the highest value of net sales, right? So you can do that by clicking on the product, any product cell, right click, sort, click on more sort options, click on descending, and you see here you will select net sales. If you wanted to do it by highest gross profit, you could also click on gross profit, but we want to click on net sales. And as you do that and click OK, you will see that all of the customer and product combinations, in all of the customer and product combinations, you will see that the highest product sales are shown up first, right? And now if you say that for the overall pivot table, I also want to sort based on the highest value of customer, right? So again, you can click on the customer field, any cell within the customer field, right click, sort, more sort options. Again, click on descending, and again, you click on net sales. So we click OK. You see the whole list is now refreshed or resorted based on Spreadsheets Limited having the highest value of net sales, which is 5 million. The next, Excel and Chill 1.4, Too Much Fun 1.2, right? So your total net sales are sorted based on the customer, and within each customer, your sales are also sorted based on the product. This setting is saved, so every time this data is refreshed, it will automatically shuffle and bring the highest net sales items at the top. So this is a great feature, very useful, and once we automated this report, it's awesome. One problem we face with automated pivot tables is sometimes the column widths keep on shifting because of the size of the field, the item in the field. So if you have a customer, for example, with a very long name, the column for the customer will automatically expand to cover that, which is good, but sometimes it throws out your overall formatting, the layout that you like. So my recommendation is you select the width yourself manually, the way you want the pivot table to look. So for example, these three columns, you want them to have exactly same size, the net sales, the gross profit, and gross profit margin. So you drag them and bring them to a position which you like, which seems okay with your layout. And then again, you click on pivot table analyze and options. And in the layout and format tab, you have something called auto fit column width on update. I would say uncheck that so that the column width will not change regardless of the changes in data. And if you click on OK, next time when you open the file and the pivot table automatically refreshes, it will not change the width of your column. So you can sort of preserve the column width, and this way your pivot table will not look wonky as a result of changes in data. I still use pivot tables, although when it comes to automation, we know we like visualizations, graphs, and charts. But still, I know from experience that a lot of the users really like to drill down to this level to be able to see the information in detail. And if you have automated the pivot table, it's a great resource for them and for you as well to analyze information. The next step, of course, would be to add graphs and charts and automate those graphs and charts. We are still not using any business intelligence tools here, such as Power BI or SAP Analytics. It's just purely Excel. If you don't have any other visualization tools, you can still do a lot and you can automate a lot of analysis within Excel itself. And if you are an accounting and finance student or professional, subscribe to my channel and go through the list of videos that I've prepared so far, and I'm sure you'll find them useful. Try this, try to automate your reports, see if it works. Leave a comment if you found this information useful, or if you have any further tips or suggestions that could help everyone here. You can also connect with me on Instagram or Facebook on the links provided in the description below.